Greetings to all of you. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon today. So I thought, let's talk about relationships. It's always fascinating to talk about relationships because Ramesh said that peace in daily living has to be experienced through the flow of relationships. I got a question from someone asking, what does it mean to relate to another? And to relate to another means to do away with the idea of what a relationship should or should not be. When one drops that preconceived notion of what a relationship should or should not be, one arrives in this spaciousness where one recognizes that the consciousness that powers me is the same consciousness that powers the other. And the recognition of that consciousness brings peace and harmony in relationships. Because in appearances, we are all different. I'm a unique individual with my own set of beliefs, choices, preferences in life. And the other, my partner, again, is also a unique individual with their preferences and choices and the way they want to live life. Conflicts happen when we start believing in the separation, when we think that the separation is real, when we say that a relation should be the way I want it to be. For example, the person should have a specific job, a specific financial status, physical attributes that are appealing to me, or habits and traits and hobbies and tendencies that I feel are good the ones, those things that I feel are important. That is when the trouble begins, because we start relating to them at a superficial level. There is expectations. Now, it is normal to have expectations in a relationship, but grasping onto them and putting this demand that the expectations should be fulfilled, that's a recipe for a disastrous relationship. This game, this drama goes on where one person keeps demanding and the other person keeps rejecting the demand, and the other person also keeps demanding in their own way, and the first person keeps rejecting, and there is clash of personalities, and then eventually there is burnout and they both decide to end the relationship. Now you see this whole idea about what a relationship should be is of the separate self, the me. So this me is an image. And the same me in the other is also an image. So what essentially is happening, these images are interacting with each other, with their choices, with their ideas, with their beliefs, with their strong opinions. And there is a clash, there is a conflict. But when we drop this image and simply see that the other is the way universe has programmed that entity, just as I am the way universe has programmed this mind-body organism or me, then there is more acceptance in the relationship. We let the other be the way they are, and we be ourselves too. That understanding is way more deeper. But when we assert our choices, our preferences onto the other person, then there is, uh, then there is fighting, chaos, conflict, confusion, heartbreak. So, when one lets go of this needing to hold the other person and to make them conform to our ideas and beliefs, then something beautiful happens. Then one relates to the other at a deeper level, at a more conscious level. So the next question is, how does one do that? How does one reach that level of consciousness where one can relate at a deeper level? When we see what the small self is doing and we experience pain and suffering, that alone is the pointer to go deep within. So, one thing I say to people who are having trouble in their relationships is that stop trying to fix the other. The trouble in the relationship is not because of the other. Just focus on your own self. Bring yourself here and now and see what is going on within you rather than trying to fix the other. Trying to fix the other according to one's ideas and preferences is just mind's way of diverting attention from the pain and discomfort that is happening within here right now. And that's a completely a fruitless endeavor. In fact, it's pure pain, because when we try to change the other, we try to fix the other, we start with that assumption that the other is broken, and we don't see our own unconsciousness that is playing a part in the dynamics. So one requires extraordinary awareness to see how this relationship dynamic that is happening right now, which is creating reactivity, which is creating conflict, how the unconsciousness is playing part in all of this, and where is that unconsciousness coming from. So as one goes deep within, one finds that space of pure stillness where one is completely comfortable with oneself. Because to be able to have a harmonious relationship with another requires first to have a very pure and harmonious relationship with oneself. To be comfortable with another requires that one is completely comfortable with oneself. Now, this doesn't mean that one can act in any way one likes. It doesn't mean that I can just throw something at the other, call them names or insult them, and then just wash my hands off and say, I am like this. It is not that. That is the separate self. That is the ego, the reactive ego, which says that this is how I am. If you are aware enough and you see and you go beyond all of that, you see that even that small self is being lit up by another awareness which is vast in nature, which is not the localized awareness. And that awareness is nothing but one's own being that also shines in the other person. So that being is vast, spacious, infinite. That is the place of true refuge. It is the place of restfulness. Just like in an ocean, The surface waves of the ocean are always turbulent, but deep down the ocean is always peaceful. Yet the surface and the depth of the ocean is one and the same. And so is our being. Everything starts from the being, but it is never detached from the being. So that is one's place of rest. When one learns to tap into that energy of being or I am, healing takes place in the mind-body organism. One becomes more and more comfortable being oneself and being alone. Then we do not see other as someone who completes us, but we rest in that space knowing that we are the wholeness, we are the completeness. The moment we try to grasp the other, when we are anxious, and try to find relief, sometimes by unloading our burdens onto them, which is a maladaptive way of relating to another human being. That is when the relationship conflicts begin. That is when the injuries begin. So if one can be more aware in a relationship, aware that beyond the persona, beyond the appearance that we see in another, is the common essence, is the essence that runs in all of us. The recognition of that essence, that energy, changes the whole dynamic because it is very attractive. When a person is restful and calm, they are like magnets. What we truly get attracted to in another is their peace and not their appearance. Even with sages, we get attracted to their peace. There is a lot of peace that they exude. But when we sense anxiousness, nervousness, that means the image is at play and it is strong. Then we try to distance ourselves. So the answer is to find how to relate to another, just go within yourself first. Rather than trying to fix the other person, rather than trying to work on the relationship, work on yourself. And when I say work, I just mean be. There is no work as such that is to be done, but just be aware and let that awareness light your whole being. Then you will observe what is happening. Then the whole idea of what a relationship should or should not be, according to what society approves, what the world approves, what is conventional, all that stuff begins to disappear. We become more and more comfortable with ourselves in our own spaciousness, and we allow the other person to be themselves in their own spaciousness. We don't force our choices and preferences onto them. And that is what makes a relationship harmonious. Now, it is not to say that one has to put up or tolerate the other. There can be differences in opinions, in choices, but those differences will not affect the relationship if the foundation is strong. And a strong foundation means when the two people are highly self-aware. Self-aware that their needs and wants and desires and expectations are all on the surface, but the depth of connection is something else entirely. In that depth, there is no separation. When that recognition happens, the relationship becomes harmonious. They become beautiful. They become a vehicle for self-knowledge and self-healing. Even the mind-body organism or the small self undergoes a lot of healing through relationships. Because in that awareness, a lot of patterns and traumas from the past are revealed. And whatever is revealed is healed. It is not that one has to do a specific type of work to heal oneself, because that kind of thought, it just keeps going. People keep working all their life and never feel any, they just feel momentary relief, They can use distractions like drinking, eating, sex, or anything like that. It just all feels good in the moment. But then again, that emptiness comes to haunt. So, what is that emptiness? That is the question. So, when one goes within and confronts that emptiness, yes, it is challenging. But when one stays with that and recognizes and sees it for what it is then that the images are dropped. And when the image is dropped, one relates to another at a deep, deep level, more consciously. And then the attachment is conscious, not unconscious. So even if there is separation between two people, there is no that does not create any problems, because one can still feel the depth of that common essence that is shared with another. There is no grudge or resentment towards the other for leaving or for not being with them in that moment. Because one is totally comfortable being oneself, being alone, with their own energy, with their own spaciousness. That spaciousness is unconditional love. That is the highest vibration. It is free from any conditions. It does not require us or the other person to be a certain way, because in that spaciousness one recognizes that there is no other. There is neither the me nor the other, but spaciousness alone. In that energy, one is magnetic. So automatically, the relationship, becomes more and more harmonious.